The Chicago Bears got to London well ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And since they've been there, Jaquan Brisker has been ruled out with an injury, and DJ Moore called Caleb Williams bossy. Lots to get to from across the pond.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On the show today, we check in on the Bears' travel to London compared to the Jacksonville Jaguars' travel to London that has had the Jaguars delayed, and now they're going to be coming in relatively tight to turn around, get adjusted, and then play a game on Sunday, whereas the Bears have had a full week to get acclimated and lose a lot of that jet lag throughout that process. We'll also touch on Jaquan Brisker's absence due to injury and the somewhat surprising plan to replace him at safety, and also a continuation of the DJ Moore, Caleb Williams storyline that, again, continues to get sort of taken out of context here and is much more of a non-story than it's been made out to be, but that's part of the process here, right? Is trying to sort of correct things and set the record straight on the relationship between those two and what's going on here, because we've seen this ongoing sort of thing where people take snippets of DJ Moore's body language on the sideline or after an incomplete pass, or they see him. There have been pictures or clips of DJ Moore sitting on the bench alone on the Bears sideline, and I know people like to get on him for, maybe not running routes as hard as he should, although I don't think that's a very legitimate narrative on him either, but it's been a bunch of this sort of like, is DJ Moore unhappy? Is he somehow getting some sort of diva reputation? We talked about this a little bit last week on Friday's podcast, but we got another layer in this that's sort of in the same veins of not a real issue at all, but some people were taking it out of context in the same way that 3-second footages of the broadcast were getting taken out of context too, because the Bears had, the players meet with the media in London this week while they're getting ready for the game, like they would any other week, and panic button alert, DJ Moore called Caleb Williams bossy, said Caleb's been bossy and telling them what to do on the field and stuff, and so, all of a sudden, DJ Moore must then be upset at his quarterback, and even DJ Moore came on Twitter and responded to somebody who was, getting upset about it. He said it's a jokey joke, was his exact phrase, a jokey joke. But so here's exactly what DJ Moore said, and I think when you hear the full quote, not just the word bossy, you can really get a sense of the relationship that they have, and he says it himself, it's very much big brother, little brother, and that kind of context makes it all so much more clear.
It's amazing. He's taking those strides that he needs to. He's been bossy lately, telling us that we need to be on the details, but we really do for him to be the best player he needs to be. So, but yeah, I think that's it.
DJ, what did you do with that? We said bossy. Have you seen him assert himself more as a leader over his values?
He's been a leader. So what I mean by bossy is we don't hit something in practice. He's going to tell us how we need to run it, this, that, and we just look at it and be like, okay. And then when we get out there on the game, you just better make sure it works because he's going to have some words for you if you don't. So that's him being a leader. He's a little bossy, just a little bro. So
that's what you want. He's younger than I guess. That's what you want to see.
You do want to see that. Like I said, he's like little bro. So you like looking at him like, dude, don't be talking to me like that. But it's but I understand because we need to really connect on that. And that's what we did this past week. So I took his advice. I listened. You know what I'm saying? Older bro had to take a back seat for a second.
Another important piece of context to that clip is that while DJ Moore is talking, Caleb Williams is standing 10 or 12 feet to his right. visibly. Like Caleb Williams is waiting for his turn to step up on the podium or the lectern and do his press conference. So DJ Moore knows in that very moment Caleb Williams is listening to him. So that's why he says all of it with a pretty coy smile, and he even kind of looks over that direction a couple times. And so like he's kind of talking to Caleb Williams and intentionally about Caleb Williams, knowing that he's listening there, right? This is not calling him out or talking about his back or anything. Like this is just two teammates who actually get along very well. And this is one teammate in particular kind of poking fun and jabbing at the other teammate. But people have been still quick to take it out of context. And I know I realize, like, I think you listening to this are probably smart enough to know that there's not a real issue here, but enough people have taken issue with it that I did feel like it was still important to bring it up and like give you and everyone the full context here of what was said and how it was said and what the circumstances were, because this is really a good thing that a rookie quarterback feels empowered enough to quote unquote boss around a veteran wide receiver like Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. I mean, yeah, of course you could expect Caleb Williams maybe could boss around Rome Odunze. He's a rookie, whatever. Like, but a rookie quarterback who's still learning this offense can come in and have enough confidence and leadership, but also enough grasp of the offense to say, no, guys, like when you're doing something wrong, I'm going to correct you. And that they also then trust Caleb Williams enough that when he does tell them to do things and does offer corrections, they will do them. And as DJ Moore said, like they will then have success after having done those corrections and those adjustments. So it's not as though that it's a total one-sided operation where it's just Caleb bossing everybody around. Like it's clearly a two-way street there where Caleb tells DJ what he's seeing, DJ tells Caleb what he's seeing, and then usually in this kind of a wide receiver quarterback relationship, the quarterback is the one who gets to be right. You know what I mean? He's the one who's throwing the ball. The receiver kind of has to make the quarterback right. And it's just about making sure that they're on the same page about what the quarterback is expecting on those plays. And then the receiver kind of has to be the one that makes the quarterback right by doing what the quarterback is expecting him to do. The receiver can't do something different than what the quarterback's expecting, or else it's not going to work for anybody. So like obviously you want that to all be the correct thing. It's what the offensive coordinator is expecting, should be the same thing that the quarterback coach is expecting, should be the same thing that the QB himself is expecting, and then that should also be then what the wide receiver is expecting. But when there's a difference there, usually you kind of got to correct back to where the quarterback is, and even though he's the rookie and he's the little brother, right? Like there's a love there that comes between a little brother and a big brother, even if they're quote unquote fighting, but not really fighting. But, you know, they can disagree about stuff and they can have heated exchanges just like any other brother does. But that doesn't mean the big brother, in this case, DJ Moore, is then a diva or is upset and is, you know, a lost cause or is quitting or is giving up or whatever, you know, whatever phrasing you want to use for the accusations against DJ Moore the past couple weeks. Like it's been a little ridiculous, especially because they've been winning games and the offense has been playing well. You know what I mean? Like, what are we getting upset about here, guys? Like, if things are, especially on offense, things are really turning around in a way. Like, it was fine to be upset about stuff in weeks 1 through 3 there, or week 1, and you know when the offense was really sputtering. But like, hey, it was all good. Everything's fine. Like we can be excited about this group moving forward. Just like we've been able to be excited about this Bears defense and not really get too upset about anything going on that side of the ball. But they're for sure going to be missing a key starter, with Jaquan Brisker already ruled out due to a concussion that he suffered against the Panthers. Finished the game against the Panthers, you should mention, but reported concussion symptoms later, not practicing all week, not going to go. And the Bears kind of made a surprise announcement in that the player who will be starting in place of Jaquan Brisker is not Jonathan Owens, who they signed as a free agent this offseason, but Elijah Hicks, who's been with this team for a couple seasons, but doesn't exactly strike me as fitting the same role as Jaquan Brisker in this defense. So we'll kind of look at the fit there and the decision and kind of how Brisker and Kevin Byard's roles have shaped out over the course of the season so far. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and also receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to play daily fantasy sports with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all because instead of setting a lineup like you do with the other daily fantasy platforms and you compete against other players directly, with PrizePicks you're in complete control. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. They set stat projections. You make your prize picks. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to have a little something extra involved in watching the games on Sunday to see how many passing yards Caleb Williams is going to throw for or how many rushing yards DeAndre Swift is, you name it. And not just football, but also basketball, baseball, hockey, you name it. They've got it all at PrizePicks. Right now, you can download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Your lineup doesn't even have to win. You play $5, they're adding $50 for you instantly when you download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. PrizePicks. Run your game. This Chicago Bears defense will for sure be without Jaquan Brisker against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We kind of had an inkling at the start of the week when the Bears flew to London, and Jaquan Brisker did not initially fly with them to London. Then the team later clarified, or was later reported, that he would fly to London and join them later in the week. But I think part of that was he was dealing with concussion symptoms, concussion protocol stuff, whatever his experience was. And maybe not the best to put someone with concussion symptoms on an international flight. I mean, I don't know exactly how long the flight is from Chicago to London, but like being on a plane that long sucks for everybody. And if I was recovering from a concussion, I don't know what that feels like, but I imagine I wouldn't want to be stuck on a plane for 6 or 8 or 10 hours, or I really have no idea how long that flight takes. And then you got to adjust to the time zone and the jet lag and all that stuff. And we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. But regardless, the Bears said, okay, Jaquan Brisker not going to play. Evidently, the concussion happened on the hit where he caused the forced fumble on the Carolina Panthers tight end Treble, I believe his last name is. Is it Tremble or Treble? I always forget. Tremble. Tommy Tremble, their 3rd-round pick a couple of years ago. And that was a play where Tremble left the game too, but it was more about Tremble causing the injury for both of them than Jaquan Brisker, because Brisker tried to go in with his shoulder, and Tremble was the one who lowered his head. And he sort of lowered his head into Jaquan Brisker, essentially hurting them both in the process. Brisker didn't have initial concussion symptoms, or evidently didn't, because he stayed in the game until the very end, but then reported concussion symptoms after the game and later on, and now they're ruling him out for this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so, okay, Jaquan Brisker rules out. I think you think about the Bears' safety depth chart on the top of your head. Brisker's kind of more your strong safety. Byard's kind of more your free safety. Your backup free safety has been Elijah Hicks. Your backup strong safety has been Jonathan Owens. In the preseason, that was the duo that would come in. They signed Owens from the Packers. He's been a good special teams player, more of a box safety type. Elijah Hicks, more of the deep safety type. But Matt Eberflus said this week, nope, they're going to start Elijah Hicks next to Kevin Byard this week instead of Jonathan Owens getting the start next to Kevin Byard. And that was a little bit of a surprise to me, given how we sort of seen these safety positions play out this season, because this was one of the questions we had coming into the year, was how exactly Brisker and Byard were going to coincide in this Bears safety room, because we knew last season it was pretty clear Eddie Jackson is the free safety, Jaquan Brisker is the strong safety. They had fairly defined roles in that regard. And last season, Elijah Hicks started in place of Eddie Jackson when Jackson was hurt. He was the backup free safety, not so much the backup strong safety. In that regard, they had Quindell Johnson and other guys would play strong safety in place of Jaquan Brisker. And so when Eddie Jackson departs and you sign Kevin Byard's been a strong safety pretty much all of his career, a guy closer to the line of scrimmage, not so much a deep safety guy. So you had both Brisker and Byard be closer to the line of scrimmage, strong safety type players. Well, in Chicago, somebody's going to have to play deep sometimes. So we were wondering how exactly that would play out. And through 5 weeks, we got a pretty good sense of what that looks like. You have Jaquan Brisker playing more free safety than he used to, but still playing less than Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard has transitioned into much more of a true deep safety type of role on this defense, whereas Brisker's playing deep more, but still generally more of the free safety type role. So like last season, Brisker was about 35% free safety, 65% strong safety. So, almost 2/3 strong, 1/3 deep safety. And Kevin Byard was more like 45-55, leaning the strong safety there. This year, Kevin Byard's at 70-30 free safety. 70% of the time, he's either the single deep safety or one of two deep safeties in the back end. 70% of the time. Only 30% of the time is he up in the box. Whereas Brisker is at that 55-45 mark, more or less, rounded up and down a little bit there. Whereas splitting his time between the two pretty close to evenly. So you would think if Byard is already more of your free safety style of safety in this defense, if the more strong safety style safety goes out, you would replace him with the backup who's more of a strong safety style safety in Jonathan Owens. Whereas Elijah Hicks, we've seen him play the Eddie Jackson role a lot more in this defense, which would be more of a natural backup for Kevin Byard in this case. So it feels like they're replacing a strong safety with another free safety here. And I'm curious what this ends up then looking like on Sunday. Does that mean they end up playing Kevin Byard a lot closer in the box this week, in more of a Jaquan Brisker role this week while Brisker's out, and then have Elijah Hicks kind of play more in Kevin Byard's role? Or do they have Elijah Hicks play more in the box in more of a Jaquan Brisker role and keep Kevin Byard playing deep? That, to me, is going to be a really fascinating dynamic on this defense, because I could kind of see some merit for both ways. Part of the argument from Matt Eberflus and the Bears this year was they were trying to make less of a distinction between the two safety positions, try and make it more multiple so that it wasn't going to be as obvious which player was playing deep and which player was playing underneath. And they've had some success doing that. They've lined up Byard and Brisker together deep a lot more. They've shown more two safety looks and rolled that coverage down to single deep safety a lot more this season than they have in years past. So they've been more flexible in that regard. But at the same time, you're still seeing Byard play a majority at free safety. Like they were trying to do like left and right safety stuff where it would you just stick to your half of the field, and sometimes it'll be up and sometimes it'll be down, but it's a little bit less specific as far as who's doing what on each play. But that hasn't been fully how it's played out. So, I'm not sitting here today trying to make the argument that, the Bears are making the wrong call by starting Elijah Hicks instead of Jonathan Owens, because I don't know. We saw Jonathan Owens play defense in Green Bay. He wasn't great on the back end. I don't think Elijah Hicks is all that great either. But the point being, I don't know that Owens is head over heels better than Hicks or vice versa. And Hicks has been in this defense longer. Owens just came in this offseason. Hicks was drafted by this team 2 years ago in the 7th round. He's had more time to really master this defense and know what he's doing. And maybe that's kind of where the advantage comes from. Less of a skill set fit and more of just a knowledge and execution fit. Whereas Owens has been, valuable on special teams, but hasn't been able to make quite the same defensive impact. I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking. I'm guessing the Bears look at this and say, hey, listen, we trust Byard to play deep or underneath, and they trust Elijah Hicks enough to play deep or underneath. I still have my concerns. I just don't think the quality of depth at safety is all that great. But when the defense is playing this well around that safety position, when the pass rush is playing well, the corners are playing out of their mind, the linebackers are playing well, I'm not going to panic that the Bears defense is missing one safety starter and think all of a sudden they're going to fold against Jacksonville and be bad all of a sudden. No, but you could foresee maybe a big mistake here or there from a backup safety coming into the game because they're just not the starter and they just haven't been out there as much. Is one big missed tackle or one blown coverage by Elijah Hicks going to be the difference between the Bears winning and losing this game? Probably not. And there's no guarantee that Jonathan Owens wouldn't make a similar type of mistake if he had been out there instead, but it is an interesting one and a matchup that certainly Jacksonville is going to look to try and take advantage of. They'll always look for the weakest link on defense to try and attack, and it's no secret that this is going to be the weakest link on this Bears defense to attack. The question is, at what strength are the Jacksonville Jaguars coming into London pretty late in this process, and they certainly have a lot more London experience than the Bears do, but it doesn't feel like they've been able to approach this the way that Jacksonville would like to ideally. So could there be a jet lag advantage for Chicago in this matchup? We'll look at the two teams' approaches and what's kind of gotten them to this point so far next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel because they're going to give you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You bet $5 on anything, win or lose, they're going to add $200 into your account. So you could place $5 on this Jaguars-Bears game this weekend, where in London, the Bears are 1.5-point favorites with a money line straight up of -122 for the Bears and an over-under set at 44.5. If you think the Bears can win by more than 1.5 points in this game, a $5 bet will get you $200 in bonus bets. Even if you're wrong, you're still going to get the $200 in bonus bets. Or you can bet on basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, tennis, combat sports, you name it. They've got it all in FanDuel. So get your $200 in guaranteed bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. The Chicago Bears were intentional about getting to London early this year. They haven't been to London since, was it 2018 or 2019 with Matt Nagy? 2019 with Matt Nagy when the Bears lost to the Rams. So they haven't had a London trip with Ryan Poles as general manager, with Matt Eberflus as head coach. I mean, I guess, George McCaskey was here for that, and Ted Phillips were here for that, but otherwise it's been a pretty drastic turnover there. I mean, I guess Cole Kmet. No, Cole Kmet would have been there for that. Cole Kmet came in 2020, so I don't think he was there for that. I don't know if any current Chicago Bears. I didn't think to double check all the players on this team, but Jalen Johnson was in 2020 as well. Anyway, whenever the Bears have had very little turnover since the last time they were in London. Has very little retained players, almost all completely turned over since the last time they were in London. So this is our first time seeing how this regime was going to handle it. And I think they've been universally praised for their approach of, hey, they flew to London on like Monday, got there so that the players could have, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to not only like lose the jet lag and get used to the time difference, but also just like kind of get used to London and, driving on the left side of the road and like the sort of whatever you think of the distraction of London might be, just being in a cool city in a foreign country. And like DJ Moore talked about, doing some shopping and stuff in London and getting to go to the stores there. Like it's a little bit different. I don't know, a lot of the major European cities kind of just feel like U.S. major cities at this point. They kind of all get a little bit blended together here, and especially London where they speak English and stuff. But there's enough of a cultural difference there where there's just a novelty that, is it going to be a huge distraction during the game? Maybe not, but it's something you could get out of the way on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday so that by Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're just used to being there. You're used to being around. It doesn't feel super different. You're not jet lagged by that point. You've been able to adjust your sleep schedule a little bit and kind of settle in and take the field on Sunday. And that's distinctly not the approach the Jacksonville Jaguars have taken. And it's interesting because the Jaguars have played in London more than any other team. I think this will be their 13th London game, to the point where there have been rumors about the NFL moving the Jacksonville Jaguars to London permanently and trying to set up a way where every week there would be a game in London, or every other week, I guess, because they wouldn't play all their games there. But they could play in London and still be a part of the NFL. Like, it's a big part of what they've done with Jacksonville. So you would think that having done this a literal dozen times, that they would have this whole process down to a T and say, okay, we've tried the getting there early, we've tried the getting there late, we've tried everything in between, and we have found the best approach to doing this that has worked, whatever the best for them is. They're like 6-6 in London games, but they haven't always been good teams, so it's not a pure measurement of their approach. But the Jaguars opted this week to say, hey, we're going to wait until a little bit later in the week. I think the plan was that they were going to fly to London on Wednesday and get over there and have a little bit of time to adjust. But then they got delayed by Hurricane Milton coming through Florida. And so The Jaguars were going to try and fly out, I think, Thursday here. It's not clear to me, or maybe on Friday now, that they were going to arrive in London somewhere around like 40 hours before kickoff. So they'd have a full day. It's not like they're going to get off the plane and run onto the field. But there's a feeling like, okay, will the Jaguars be more jet lagged than the Bears? Will they be at 100% energy-wise? Will there be more London-type distractions around them? I mean, this Jaguars regime has been to London before, so you'd think the distraction part shouldn't be a big deal, but their decision to wait to go to London and then get delayed further by the hurricane means they're going to get to London significantly later than they wanted, or significantly later than the Bears got to London. And is that going to be the difference in the game? I don't know. It's talent and coaching matters probably a little bit more than jet lag, but it does feel like something that could provide some sort of advantage for the Chicago Bears, just in terms of, by the time you get to the fourth quarter, one team is a little bit more adjusted to the time and maybe sleeping a little bit better and just has more of a baseline foundation of energy and fuel behind them, and maybe the other team is dragging a little bit more by the time they get to that point. I mean, we'll see. I don't want to make this a bigger narrative than it needs to be, but it also feels like something that definitely does matter here. And I think the Bears were able to take the right approach here. Now, the part of the reason why the Jaguars were going to wait is because, you might not know this, they're playing back-to-back games in London. The Jaguars play the Bears in London this week, and then they are staying in London, and then they're playing the New England Patriots in London next Sunday at the same time in the same place. So they have back-to-back games in London. And so I think part of the thought process for Jacksonville was they didn't want to fly to London on Monday and then spend almost 2 full weeks in London. They want to give the players a little bit more time with their families here, knowing that they're going to be gone for 9 or 10 days had they left on time, as opposed to close to 14 had they left when the Bears left. So the Bears had an advantage of, like, hey, they get to fly home from London on Monday after the game, or even Sunday after the game. I don't know what the timing is that. Whereas Jacksonville does not get to fly home from London after the game, and they will stay there. And so I sort of understand not wanting to extend your London time even further, but I also feel like, what's 3 more days in London? You know what I mean? This is not like they're not saving 3 weeks in London, and they're going to have to be there for a week anyway. So, if they're there, say with the delayed flight, they're there 9 days or 8 days, how much better is that for players than being there 13 days? If they went like Monday to Sunday, Monday to the following Sunday, yeah, I guess, that adds up. 5 days or 4 or 5 days or whatever it ends up being is not an insignificant amount of time. But I don't know, if you're an NFL athlete, you're on the road a lot during the season anyway, like, wouldn't you rather be in London early and get well adjusted before the first game, as opposed to maybe not being fully adjusted before you play the Bears, but then you'll be perfectly adjusted when you play the Patriots in the second game? So I don't know. I'm not here to say I know what's best for the Jaguars to have done there, but it is just an interesting approach that they have taken compared to the approach that the Chicago Bears have taken. And we'll definitely be watching to see if you see any sort of like fatigue aspect that maybe we could pin back on the London travel. Because part of this too is just like, when teams go and play in London, it tends to be a little bit uglier. It tends to be a little bit sloppier, and weird things can happen. So, like, even though I go into this matchup pretty confident in the Chicago Bears, I mean, on yesterday's crossover Thursday with Tony Wiggins, I was predicting like a 27-17 style of victory based on what the Bears have done in the last couple of games. But it's reasonable to think that, maybe the Bears just won't be as sharp in London because it's in London and because it's such a literal foreign experience for them, as opposed to if they were at Soldier Field at home against the Jaguars. I don't think there would be a 1.5 point spread on FanDuel Sportsbook. I think the Bears would be favored by even more. But I think the London factor is what's bringing that down, and why Jaguars fans are feeling confident like they can beat the Bears and have a potential, 1 score or more victory in this game, because the Jaguars just have they know the stadium better. They know the locker rooms better. I mean, they just have more experience under their belt of what it's like to play in London as opposed to what it's like to play here. So we'll see. We'll break down whatever happens in this game, win, lose, or God forbid a draw, right here on the Locked On Bears podcast on Monday. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen. Come on back on Monday, make us your first listen once again, and in exchange, you can be sure you'll get another opportunity to bear down.